I'm going to show you a couple of techniques I use to create a digital painting on my iPhone 6 Plus. The first thing I'm going to do is use the Prisma app, which is going to apply a filter. It's going to help me really see the shapes and colors in my photograph. And then I'm going to take that filtered image and I'm going to open it up in the Adobe Sketch app, where I'm going to paint over the photo to create an 18 by 24 inch finished painting that you could print out on canvas. So let's go ahead and open up Prisma. So this is a free download from the App Store, and when I do that, it's going to have a screen like this, and down at the bottom, that little arrow that points up, I'm going to touch on that, and that's going to bring up my camera roll, and I'm going to choose the image of my dog. This is Bo. And then you have a lot of different filters in Prisma that you can use. Like, let's say here is Broadway. It's one of my favorites. It doesn't really look too effective for what I want to do here. So I'm going to go to one that I always like. This is a great one. I don't know how to say that. So that's a really nice little composition. It's kind of yellowish, but let's try one more. Dallas is always fun, gives a lot of blues and so forth. All right, so let's go with this one. So I'm going to go ahead and save that by touching the little square with the arrow pointing up at the lower right-hand corner. And I'm going to go ahead and save that image. So that's saved to my camera roll. Now I'm going to cancel out of that, and I'm just going to close out of Prisma. I'm going to go back to my home screen, and I'm going to open up Adobe Sketch. Adobe Sketch is a free download from the App Store. You have to make a sign-on, though, for it, and there's a lot of things you can do with the Adobe mobile apps, and I'm going to talk about them in some future videos. But I'm going to go ahead and touch on Adobe Sketch, and that's going to open that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start a new project. Before I do that, though, what I'd like to say is I want to get a particular piece of paper. So if I go here and just go ahead and give it a go with this size right here, I have a couple of things I can do. I can bring in that image, and I'm going to bring in that image of the dog that I just created in Prisma, and I'm going to touch on the little circle with the plus sign, and down the bottom it says, do I want a sketch layer or an image layer? And I'm going to choose image layer by touching that. And then it says, where is it? It is on my iPhone. So when I touch on that, it brings up my pictures, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the image that I just altered in Prisma, because that's going to give me some color and some shape that's going to help me when I'm doing this painting. So I'm touching on that, and now I have the image. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. And I could have cropped out all that extra, but right now I'm just going to let it be the way it is. I'm going to click on Done. And now you can see on the right-hand side, there's a thumbnail of the image, and there's also a blank you can see below that. That is a sketch layer they put on there automatically. When I touch it and it's selected, it has the blue around it. So I'm going to put my finger on it, and I'm going to drag it on top, because I don't want to paint on the layer itself. I want to paint on the blank layer, the kind of the clear layer that is above that. So at this point, you can look at the brushes that are along the left-hand side. And these brushes have watercolor brush, you have acrylic brush, you have pencils, that type of thing. Right now, I'm going to choose the acrylic brush, which is the this one right here. And I could alter this a little bit, make it a little more customized for myself. I can add brushes and so forth, but right now I'm going to leave it the way it is. And it is the 1, 2, 3, 4th one down. So when I touch it, it's going to allow me to change the color, allow me to change the opacity and the size of this. So I'm going to change that size and make it small to begin with. And I'm going to change the color. Actually, I'm just going to pick a color from the photograph by putting my finger on that color. It's the last big circle down there. And I'm going to move it with my finger, and I can see the little crosshair. It's going to pick the color I want to start with. So I'm going to start with that color of Bo's fur. Excuse me, I'm going to pinch in so I can see this larger. Let's just kind of get that color again. I can also make this a very strong, full intensity color, or I can bring down the opacity like that. That's going to be very transparent. So I'm going to make it pretty much full range. And I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to start painting these areas. And the nice thing about Prisma is it has kind of given me these shapes to work in. So every time I go over to the color picker, I can just grab that area of color. So I can continue doing this until the painting is complete. And as I want to move, I'm going to pinch my fingers and I move along. And the larger I make it, the easier it is for me to see what I'm doing. I have an large area of color. I can make my brush bigger so I can paint a little bit faster. And I can then make it smaller again when I've got to get into these areas. So I'm going to continue on with this, but I'm going to stop right now and check back when I have more finished. Okay, so I've done some more painting, and I'm filling it in a little bit more. What I want to show you is if you want to take a look at just the painting layer, you can turn off the image layer. So to do that, you want to touch the image layer to bring up this this screen here that's going to give you some options, things to do. I can turn down the opacity. So that's one way of just viewing the drawing that you're doing. You can also touch the little eye that's in the upper right hand corner there, and that's also going to turn it off. So this will just kind of give you an idea of what you're doing. Now you can completely delete that image layer at the end of your painting, or you can just leave it there. So any of the little areas, especially the very dark areas that you don't cover, won't be apparent in the finished painting. So I'm going to just leave it off for a sec and just kind of zoom in, zoom out a little bit so you can see that I still have the left eye to do, and there's a lot more to do, but you can see how this painting is progressing. So another thing I want to say, as you're painting, is in your image you might have a lot going on, like the dog is standing by the door, there's a lot of interior I can see of the house. Well, maybe I don't want to have all that. I just want to have a portrait of Bo here. So what I'm going to do, instead of continuing to trace over everything, paint over everything as it is, I'm just going to choose this blue background color, and I'm going to paint over all of the information in the background, because I'm just going to have the dog as the focus of the painting. And there I'm getting to the edge of the paper, going all the way out to the end here where there isn't anything, and that's going to allow your viewer to just get the focus of the dog, and you're not concerned about any of the other information that's going on here. Now down here where he's standing, I might, indicate, okay, that's the floor, so we're going to change that color and maybe just bring in a little hint of the blue. But as the artist, you have the authority to do whatever you want. It's your painting. So you can alter it and you can edit things, out if you feel like it's just not what you want to have in there. So I'm kind of getting rid of all the tile and kind of just making an interesting background. So I'm going to continue on with that and see how it looks. And we're making some progress here, and you can see he looks a little sad in this portrait, and maybe it's a little darker than I would like, but I'm going to continue on with this and see how it goes. But for this video, I think you get the idea of how to create a painting. So what I would like to see is what you can do with Adobe Sketch. So, please send me what you're doing and ask me any questions as you go along. And I'll be creating some more videos in the future.